Hello and welcome to the first deck preview of the ultra rare set, where we're going to be beginning with Angel Feather. I think some people that follow me on Twitter, which you should be doing if you're not, probably already know that I had very mixed feelings on the clan in Standard when it was first being revealed. But boy, after playtesting, I changed my mind completely, and initially I was gonna do Neo Nectar as the first one, but god, playtesting this deck, I really got hyped, so I really want to talk about it first. So let's just get right into it without much delay. So it is a Protect clan, so get those sweet Protect markers, and our starter is Peniel, so same starter as always. And then we have our two main grade 3s, the first one of which is gonna be the Zerachiel. Vanguard and Rearguard skill. During your turn, if in this turn a card was put into your damage zone, then all of your units in the front row get plus 3k power. So essentially, if you swap damage during that turn, you get the front row buff. Sadly, it's not during your opponent's turn, so it only works during your turn, so you don't get a cool passive buff during your opponent's turn, which is a bit of a shame. I wish they kind of kept that from Zerachiel. That would have been a really nice touch, but it's okay for what it is. But the main reason you play this card is that second skill, which is an act in the damage zone. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, and this card is face up in the damage zone, you can put the top card of your deck into your damage zone face down, and then you can ride her as stand. So basically she has to stay face up, but you essentially take a damage to ride her face up. So it's kind of like you pay Counterblast 1 to ride her. This skill isn't once per turn, so you can keep doing it. If you have 4 face up Zerachiels in your damage zone, you can use all 4 in that turn to get 4 Protect markers in your hand. This is really good with the main win con of this deck. For quite a while, I wasn't really happy with this card. I was like, what's the point of, not really doing anything when you ride it from hand? The 3k buff doesn't really do that much. But honestly, even the 3k buff is nice because it does make some nice numbers against a lot of matchups. And just, this deck pluses so much that it's actually crazy. Like in every game I've playtested, I just always have such a massive hand, and it really takes a while for the opponent to actually chip away at it. So she's a big reason why that is actually possible, so you definitely want to run her at 4. Next up is the card that really it's the cherry on top, which is Metatron. So when you ride her on top of a grade 3, you may Counterblast 2, and then you choose one card from your damage zone and call it to Rearguard Circle, and for that turn she gains plus 15k power. Yes, you do heal 1, because it doesn't say that you take damage in any way. You Counterblast 2 and you take a card from damage and call it. So that's really nice. So you usually call the card that you counterblasted, that way you don't call your face up damage because you want to keep it face up, and you get the plus 15k buff. So it's basically like a stride where you just stride to heal 1 for a counterblast of 1 essentially. But you also get to call something, which is really nice, and that makes the whole, it kind of brings, I wasn't happy with how little toolboxy stuff there was in the deck at first, but honestly with how much you can call from damage zone, it feels a lot more toolboxy than I initially gave it credit for. Then her second skill is an act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. Choose any card in your damage zone and put it on the bottom of your deck, and then you take 1 damage. And the damage check does actually take place, meaning this is basically a triple drive check, so it really is like a stride. So this pair of skills works out so well because you ride her, Counterblast 2 to call something that you counterblasted, and then you can put the other card you counterblasted back into deck and take a fresh damage. So you essentially don't actually counterblast to heal 1 and potentially get another trigger that you can trigger in the main phase. So that's just really, really nice, and this card is absolutely amazing. So definitely worth running at 4 of. Even if you first ride it, it's not that bad because you can just recycle a card in your damage zone, so it's not even that bad. It's still a triple drive on first ride if you do ride into it, so it's definitely quite nice. And then 3 of the Feather Palace. This you also don't really mind riding into because of its skill actually. So Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, when it attacks, you can Soul Blast 2 grade 3s from your soul, and then as long as all the damage in your damage zone is face down, for this battle this unit gains plus 20k power and an extra crit, and your opponent cannot guard with sentinels. So if you already counterblasted all your damage before using this skill, then you don't, it still works fine, but if you didn't, then you have to turn everything face down for when it attacks. So do keep that in mind, but this is really powerful because it's a 32k with a crit swing on its own, which already, you can Sentinel that, so at least 2 cards from hand, because a heal isn't enough to guard that unless you're playing Force. So that's already a really, really good start. But you can call it with Metatron. Even if you ride into it, that's just another grade 3 in Soul, because later on you're going to either ride into Zerachiel or ride into Metatron later on anyway. So the worst you do is you add a Protect marker to hand. You know, it's still perfectly fine. So this card is the win con, and it's just so good. Like, this card is actually insane, and I definitely think you should be running it at 3, because in some games where you get several Zerachiels off in the same turn, you can actually do this twice in the same turn. So just call 2 of them on 2 sides, and it's so ridiculous. So this card is insanely good. Getting into our grade 2s, first we have Raguel. So this is one of those cards that requires a damage to be swapped, just like Zerachiel's plus 3k buff. So her skill is, when you call her from hand, if in that turn you put a new card into your damage zone, then you may counterblast 1 and call any card from your drop zone to rearguard circle. That is really, really good. Because, like, that's a Grand Blue skill in Angel Feather of all things, so it's just ridiculous. Like, you can actually call the Feather Palace from this skill, from your drop zone. Like, it's actually ridiculous how good this skill is. So you can call anything else that we go into, but do keep in mind this card does only trigger when you call it from hand. Every single on-call skill, I think, in this deck triggers from being called from hand, so you won't actually get to do anything when you, like, call them with Metatron or something, which is a bit unfortunate, because it's like, you know, V-Series is more like Call from Hand series, so it's a little bit unfortunate, but still a really, really good card. And then we have our main grade 2 ride, in my opinion, and like something that gets you really early advantage, so that way you save on a lot of cards in your hand, which is the Armati. When you place it from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you may Soul Blast 1, and then you choose 1 card from your damage zone and call it to Rearguard Circle, and then take the top card of your deck and put it into your damage zone face down. So even if you ride this going first or second, you still get 1 card from your damage zone as long as your opponent gave you that first damage, and then you get to call yourself a unit, which is just, it's so good. Like this, it's such early advantage for such an easy cost. You don't have to swap damage this turn, so what you can do is like Soul Blast 1 to call something, and then take the damage, and then if you have 1 more open damage, you can counterblast 1 immediately with the Raguel to call whatever you Soul Blasted from your drop zone. So you're getting so much, like obviously you have to call the Raguel not from the damage zone but from your hand, but you're getting so much advantage so early on, and this deck is just all about that, so I really, really like it for that. And then our last 2 grade 2s are the Million Ray Pegasus. So this one is one of those, when you put a new card into your damage zone during this turn, this unit gets plus 5k, plus 5k power, plus 5k shield. So also works in your opponent's turn when you take damage, obviously. So it's basically a 10k shield when you do take damage, also from your hand because it's in the guard circle. So that's definitely very, very nice, and I like that card quite a lot for that. I would maybe even try to fit in a third one if I could, but you really want to play the 3 Feather Palace because it's super nice. Then we have probably my favorite card in the deck, which is the Hezdiel. When called from hand, you may counterblast 1 and then swap a card from your hand with a card in your damage zone. So you basically put a card from hand into damage, take a card from damage and put it into your hand. So this is the main way you're going to be putting those Zerachiels from your hand into your damage to use her skill, because otherwise you're not really gonna get to do that. But it's just a great skill, like it's very universal. It's pretty much the only skill that lets you swap from hand to damage. Just a little bit unfortunate because that's what I really liked about Angel Feather before, but I mean, I'm not really complaining about it. I'm cool with it, but just a great card. I like it a lot, so definitely worth to play at 4 of. And then the other one is the Arabaki, which is when called from hand, you can discard 1 card from your hand and then choose any card from your damage zone and put it into your hand, and then take the top card of your deck into the damage zone face down. So once again, it's just you swap, you basically take a card from your damage into your hand, but instead of putting it from your hand into the damage zone, you have to discard it. So you do have some discard targets in this deck, but don't forget, you can, even if you discard something important, you can just bring it back with Raguel. So it's just like there's no drawbacks really to this skill because you don't even minus yourself, so it's worth using. It doesn't even cost Counterblast or Soul Blast, so it's definitely really, really nice. And then I run 4 of the 1000 Ray Pegasus. Some people play like the Tanuki grade 1 who like gives 2 units plus 5k power, so you could like cut 2 to do that, but I like running this at 4 just because putting this behind a Feather Palace is deadly as hell, just because his skill is when he boosts, if during this turn you put a new card into your damage zone, then you can counterblast 1, and for that turn, this unit gets plus 10k power. So you're already swinging for 32 with Feather Palace, plus 8, so that's 40, plus another 10, that's 50 without triggers, with no sentinels and a crit. So I like this card a lot just for that little combo, and it's good to extend that last counterblast before you use Feather Palace and then, you know, flip everything you have anyway. But, you know, it's definitely possible to do it with this, so I like to run 4 of it for now. Maybe I'll change in the future, but for now I was quite happy with it. And the trigger lineup is 6 draw, 4 heal. I like running these 2 draws just because if you don't want to discard your combo pieces, you can at least discard this, but apart from that, it's just kind of alright. I could cut this to play 8 crit, but for now I just enjoyed having it as a discard cost, but I might put it up to 8 crit in the future, but this was just from my initial testing that I really like this trigger lineup, so I kept it the way it is for now. So this is the deck itself, but now let's take a look, as always, how the deck performs in game. Getting into this fight, we're actually going to be playing against the developer of the standard table plugin for Tabletop Simulator, and actually his efforts are what make these videos a lot easier for me because I don't have to import all the cards myself, and I can just build them from the plugin itself. So if you do have Tabletop Simulator and you don't own the plugin, I really recommend picking it up. It's always in the description of these videos, so do check it out. So a big thank you to Shakusho for his efforts, honestly. So we're going to be fighting against him, and he's going to be using Shadow Paladin, and my starting hand isn't all that amazing. You know, I don't have the proper grade 3 ride, but as I said, riding into the Feather Palace isn't that bad because we get the grade 3 in the soul, and we also get a protect marker if anything, but I drive check into a second one. But the rest of my hand looks pretty good. Like, I have the grade 2, I kind of forget his name, the one that calls from damage zone, the Armati, that's the one, but he rides into the Blaster Dark, and I think he will be using, yeah, he's discarding for the cost of Blaster Dark to get the second drive check, so I'm going to no-guard that, but he doesn't hit any triggers, and I hit a draw trigger, so if anything, I came out pretty advantageous out of that, so I'm pretty happy with the outcome of that turn. So now I'll be able to ride into the Armati and get myself something from the damage zone, so I'm going to choose the one and only, well, draw trigger, and I hit the Zerachiel into the damage zone. So that's a little bit unfortunate because I can't swap into it right now, and there's no way to like put it face up immediately with the skill, so I'd have to use like 2 skills basically to put it face up. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but it's not too bad. So he rides into the Dark Dictator and gets himself the force, calls down the Karen with a skill to get the counter charge if he wants to do it, and then, yeah, he's soul blasting 1 and countercharging, and then calling the Blaster Javelin and using the skill immediately, so that's pretty good, so he gets an extra card in hand. And I had to nuke my Nociel, but it's not that big of a deal because I kind of called it for that purpose, knowing that it'd probably get nuked anyway. And here he's just attacking into my Million Ray Pegasus, which is alright, like he would have gained some shield if anything, but he hits a crit and gives it to his rearguard and attacks with it. I honestly think he shouldn't have done that, because by keeping me on 1 face down damage, I really can't do that many plays. Like, I'd be able to do like the Armati or something, but I can't do the Hezadiel that I'm doing here to put the Feather Palace into the damage zone and take my Zerachiel into my hand, so I can actually ride it next turn and get myself another protect marker and get that plus 3k buff on the front row, which, as I said, is actually pretty good and a lot better than I initially thought. So here I have some options. I can either use the Raguel to call something from my drop zone, or I can use the Armati to call something from my damage, but I'm going to use the Raguel instead to call the Million Ray Pegasus, and then attack with the 12k from my Feather Palace on his rearguard. He's going to take it, I hit a crit, put it on the Raguel. That way, if he decides to take that or guard it, it's going to take up quite a few resources, but he does take it. Doesn't hit any damage triggers, so I can attack with the Million Ray Pegasus. Some people might think that's a misplay, but honestly, I'd rather just force him to either take the 2 damage, because his only damage was counterblasted, than, like, even if he hit a damage trigger, I'd rather give up that 1 attack than have him, you know, take my 1 damage attack from the Pegasus and then have to, you know, have him guard against my 2 crit attacks. I hope that makes sense, but that's just like, I think it's better for this deck's win con. So he goes over the Maka, and I believe here he's going to be using the Dark Dictator skill, if I'm not mistaken, because that will be able to wipe off a unit off my board. So he calls the Blaster Dark, and then use the Blaster Dark skill as well. So I have to retire 2 units in total, so I do lose quite a bit, but I keep the Pegasus on there just in case I can actually use his skill to intercept with him for a 10k in total. So it's quite nice that he's basically like a recyclable 10k shield, because you can keep calling him back with the Raguel. So he does hit the 1 crit. I was kind of afraid there, because one of the games we playtested, I was on 3 damage and he hit a double crit when I no-guarded, so I was like, well, I really hope that doesn't happen here. But now I'm on like 32k power, so I just guard with a 5k draw trigger from my hand, and then he's attacking for a slightly bigger one there, but I can still guard with a 5k, and it's pretty chill. So I run into the Zerachiel, I get myself a Protect, and then here I'm kind of checking what my options are, because I can use the Arabaki to recycle something. I can also use the Armati to call something from my damage zone, so I'm going to take the grade 1 Pegasus, and here I'm actually going to forget to complete the Armati skill, and I'm already calling the Arabaki, but don't worry, I'm going to actually finish the skill. I'm going to remember like just around here, yeah, to put the top deck into my damage face down, so don't worry, I didn't misplay properly, it's just like I was thinking 2 steps ahead and I forgot one important step. Here I'm using the Arabaki to discard the Raguel to take another one into my hand, and then discard the other Raguel to take the Metatron into my hand. That way I have the optimal grade 3 ride for next turn. I can actually set up the win con next turn too. So here I'm using the 1000 Ray Pegasus skill to counterblast 1 and put myself up to 33k power. I hit a crit and giving it to Vanguard and giving the power to the Armati. He hits a heal, but I'm on 5 damage, so he can't use it, so that's really nice as well. So that way I can actually play through this pretty well and have a really nice win condition next turn, unless he actually has enough cards in hand to guard it, but that's still going to be okay because we should be plussing quite a bit next turn regardless. And even right now, you know, 7 card hand is pretty low actually, because usually I'd have like a 10 to 12 card hand by this time, but we didn't hit any like more Zerachiels in the damage zone, so we couldn't plus through that, and I haven't been as aggressively plussing either. But he goes for the Phantom Blaster Dragon, but he's unable to remove my entire field, so he wouldn't have the condition for the second skill, but he doesn't really care about that anyway because I'm on 5 damage, so all he really wanted to do was to actually hit me for, well, to force me to lose a lot of cards from my board, but he didn't really hit any mains this turn or anything, or this game. So the fact that he had to retire so many actually hurt him a bit more than it hurt me, I think, because he hasn't been plussing that much this game, I think. So that's just something worth mentioning. So it's if you don't hit the mains, I think, and you don't use Maka often enough, you kind of lose out more by using PBD skill yourself, I think. So here I'm just using both of my protects against those attacks. I chose to discard the crits instead of my other cards because I want that Metatron in my hand, and I need that Pegasus behind the Feather Palace that I'm about to call, or already called rather, because that's the ideal situation for the win con. So I'm using Metatron's second skill to pull 1 damage back and then top deck 1 in case it's a trigger, but I didn't get it. So here I'm attacking with the 27. He does perfect guard it because he won't be able to use perfect guards against my Feather Palace. I didn't get anything from that drive check, and I honestly didn't drive check much. Well, I drive check 1 crit I think in this game, but I'm using the Feather Palace here to Soul Blast 2 grade 3s, and I'm attacking for 32 plus the 8, so 40 plus the 10k from the Pegasus, so a 50k attack. So he needs to drop a lot without using Sentinels here, and you know, I flipped down my last damage with the Pegasus, so here if you can't guard it, he has to take it, and he doesn't get the heal, so that is game. So that is going to be it for this Angel Feather deck preview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So that last game, the reason why I attack with the Feather Palace first is because in case he did heal, he'd have to take a second damage on top, so I'd rather attack with that. But I think it makes sense why I did some of the things I did in that game, but I hope that this showed off the deck quite a bit. I didn't plus as much as I normally do when I'm playtesting, so I didn't hit like a second Zerachiel, and then like I basically did it through Metatron and using the grade 2s, which bring back a lot of units either from your damage zone or from your drop zone. So this deck really makes a lot of advantage. So you only really call things from your hand when you want to use the skills, because everything is when called from hand. But overall the deck is really strong, and I'm not surprised why it's one of the best decks in the meta right now and continues to knock down OTT as well, together with Neo Nectar and Murakumo. So that's going to be it for this deck preview. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next up will be the one for Neo Nectar, so you're looking forward to that as well. But that's going to be it for me today. So do make sure to check out the second channel. I finally did upload on there, so please do check it out, and then also click the bell button and check out the social medias in the description and join the Discord channel if you haven't already. But on that note, that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.